excited to be able to introduce our next speaker. We got Grayson Greiner, played at Blythewood High School, and went on to play at Carolina from 2012 to 2014. 2014, drafted by the Detroit Tigers in the 3rd round, and then made his Major League debut in 2018. During his professional career, he played for the Detroit Tigers, the Diamondbacks, the Twins, and the Rockies. So excited to hear your presentation. Appreciate you being here.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Everybody hear me all right? First things first, just want to say it's an honor to be here. I've never had to get up and talk about catching for 55 straight minutes, so bear with me. I was the son of a coach, so I know how hard coaching is, and from a very young age, my dad instilled in me from 8 till today, if somebody coaches you, you call them coach the rest of their life. So, Coach Hallett, I never called you anything different. Coach Hucks, I never called you anything coach. So, everyone in this room, I really respect and appreciate what y'all do. It's going to be a little different than some of the other presentations. I've never been a coach. All I've ever done is played. I got done playing in 2023, so I'm going to try and give, my perspective as a player, some drills, some techniques, things like that when it comes to catching. As I said, I stopped playing in 2023, played 10 years professionally. I got about 3.5 years in the big leagues, so got to play with some really cool players, some good players, and learned from some really good coaches. Coach Hucks was my catcher coach. I got lessons from him from age 10 till my senior year. So if I messed anything up, you stop me and tell me if I did something wrong. So we'll get started. Just some general thoughts. Catcher is the most important and probably the hardest position on the field. Just like the last speaker said, if you don't have a good catcher, you can't win. It's that simple. You got to be very cerebral to catch. A lot of times your catcher is going to be one of your smartest players, and you got to have those relationships. And I think that's part of the reason why catchers make great managers. You look at the big league level, a lot of managers are catchers. You are involved in the pitching staff. You got to hit. You're involved with first and third defense, front defense, cuts and relays, calling the game. There's so many things that you have to worry about as a catcher that you can stick your guy out in left field. All he's really worried about is not messing up and hitting. Right, catcher, you're involved in about every play. Catching mindset. There's really not a lot of guys, in my experience, that want to get back there and catch. Most guys just want to hit, and that's all they want to worry about. When you're a catcher, you got to take a lot of pride in doing it. And like I said, you need someone that can process a lot of information in a very short amount of time. Obviously, everyone in here is a high school coach. You all don't have the pitch clock. From a player's perspective, when you get up in the pro, you got the pitch clock. You throw the ball back. You got about 15 seconds to process. All right, what's this guy hitting a 1-1 count? All-speed pitch away. And then you got to look over, get your pick signs. You got to realize where the defense is set up. So you got to have somebody. I kind of equate it to being a quarterback. Quarterbacks drop back. They got about 2 seconds to process a lot of information in a very short amount of time. Catchers is very similar. You have to be able to lead. All right, I was a very timid, shy, quiet player growing up. As I got older, I learned you got to be able to lead from that position. It's the only position on the field where you got 8 sets of eyeballs looking at you, and you're looking at 8 sets of eyeballs. So no matter what you do at the plate, if I go for 4 or 4 strikeouts, I can't really slouch back there and hang my head because I got 8 people dependent on me and making sure I have good body language. And catchers today are a lot different than they used to be. They're big, strong, athletic. You got to learn to take care of your body. It's not a guy that you really want out there that's going to be a robot or a statue that can't move. So learning, and with that comes the ability to do a lot of things that catchers 30 years ago couldn't do. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So when we talk about catching, you got the physical side and you got the mental side. The 3 things when I work with young kids when it comes to catching, physically you got receiving, you got blocking, you got throwing. Those are really the 3 main things. You got bunt plays, you got pop-ups, those happen very rarely. 99.9% of what we work on is receiving, blocking, and throwing. We'll get a deep dive into those, but everything on this right here is kind of what I was talking about before. These are all the things that are constantly going through your head. Unless you've done it as a catcher, you don't realize that all those things are going through your head constantly, right? One big thing I would imagine at the high school level, y'all have pitch comm, sign sequences with a man on second. That's another anxiety. Pitchers are anal about, does this guy have my signs? Does he know what's coming? That's another thing. Throw the ball back, I got to remember, all right, am I chasing the 2? If he shakes, am I going third sign? So those are some of the things that are always going on. Cuts and relays, handling the pitching staff. Your relationship with the pitching coach is huge, right? Like the last speaker said, The catcher is the only person that has the view of the ball coming in. Pitchers have a different view. Everyone on the field has a different view. Catchers know if that ball is breaking how it's supposed to, know that the pitcher still has steam on his fastball. So having that relationship and honesty with the pitching coach and with your pitchers is huge. Something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, relationship with the umpire. Massage their egos. Make sure that they're happy, because at the end of the day, as catchers, we're trying to win 6 to 8 of those borderline pitches a game. If that guy doesn't like me, he's probably not going to give me those pitches. So I'm constantly keeping that relationship going with them. At the bottom, offense. All right, it's the most fun, but it's probably, as a catcher, it's the least important. I always prided myself. I can impact the game a whole lot more behind the plate than I can at the plate. I was never a great hitter. I always wanted to make sure I never messed up behind the plate, and took a lot of pride in that. So just some general thoughts on pitch calling. I got, like I said, worked with some really, really cool pitching coaches and some cool thoughts when it comes to pitch calling. When I got to the Minnesota Twins in 2023, it opened my eyes incredibly. Their pitching staff was incredible. Believe it or not, they told us, 0-0 pitch, we want you to set up right down the middle every single time. They said, when you get to 0-1, the whole of that changes. No doubt. And they showed us the middle quadrant on that 9-box strike zone, the middle quadrant on the first pitch. In the major leagues, the OPS was like under 100. It's just the ball, when it gets put into play, it's not for much power at that level. So they said, we want you to get to 0-1, get to 2 strikes as fast as you can. They said 80% of 2-strike pitches, we want it to be off speed. Now, I don't know if that'll apply to the people in this room. Looking at the numbers, guys don't hit off-speed pitches as well as they hit fastballs. So they said, we want you to get to 2 strikes as fast as you can, and then put them away with off-speed. And just to show some of the disparities between different organizations, when I was with Detroit, we had a rule in the minor leagues: if you got the 0-1 count, you had to throw a fastball inside to establish the inside part of the plate. Twins wouldn't say that, Tigers said that, so that just shows the disparity. And there's no catching and pitch calling, all that. It's not a science, it's an art. You got to have a little bit of a feel for game flow and knowing kind of when to pick your spots. For me personally, I always try to call games to my pitcher's strengths and not the hitter's weaknesses. You can kind of drive yourself crazy looking at, trying to read swings and say, all right, this guy can't get the sliders away. Well, if my pitcher can't throw a slider away, it doesn't really matter. I always want to try and go down with my pitcher's strengths instead of my hitter's weaknesses. In game-defining moments, bottom of the 7th, 2 outs, man on third, tying run on third, I try to always make guys beat me to the opposite field. Most guys, even at the big league level, most guys don't hit the ball the other way as well as they pull the ball, especially for power. And it was kind of just a general rule of thumb: we don't want to get beat to the pull side. We would want to make a guy hit a fastball or slider down and away and beat us to the opposite field. And last thing, as a catcher, know your pitchers like the back of your hand. You got to know how they like you to set up. I'm 6'6", I'm a big catcher. Some guys didn't like throwing big catchers, so I tried to shrink myself as much as I could. Some guys didn't like a target, early. Some guys didn't like a pre-pitch move too late where they lose the target. And I wanted to know from pitcher number 1 on the staff to pitcher number 13 on the staff how they like me to set up, how they like me to give their target, and in a big spot, just like I was talking about before, in a big spot, what they're most comfortable with. And that can change on a day-to-day or in a that basis, right? If a guy goes out and throws his 8 warm-up pitches and throws 3 curveballs, 2 of them are 40 feet and one's over my head, I'm probably not calling a curveball in a big spot right there. So knowing your pitchers intimately is absolutely key. So I'm going to start talking a little bit more about the physical part of catching, stance talk. Catching has been revolutionized these last 3 or 4 years. Okay, knee-down catching has taken over the position, and I believe personally, just from experience of doing it, in a good way. And I'll show some of the reasons, but the stats back it up. At that level, it was the fewest pass balls and wild pitches in history, and the fastest pop times in history. And I would venture to say 28 out of the 32 starting catchers go knee-down with runners on every time. So you can see up here, that's left knee down. That's JT Realmuto. That's a left knee down stance. Right knee down stance, and then the traditional. Those are kind of the 3. With nobody on base, less than 2 strikes, I would advise even a 7-year-old learning how to catch on a knee, because I don't have to block, I don't have to throw. All I got to worry about is receiving. For me personally, it's block. When I'm on 2 feet, my eye level's here. When I get down on a knee, now I get my eye level here. It allows my head to get lower. I feel sturdier. I'm able to manipulate the ball a little bit better. And I would recommend learning how to catch from that position. Because like I said, As a coach, you don't ever want the ball to get by your catcher. But at the end of the day, there's nobody on base. It doesn't hurt the team. It doesn't look good, but I'd much rather him try and steal that low ball than, be in a traditional stance, not be able to steal that strike. 2 strikes or a runner on base. I'll get into it in a little bit, but that right knee down position, well, now we got to be able to receive, we got to be able to block, we got to be able to throw. I found from experience that blocking was infinitely easier from that right knee down stance, right? I don't have, my head angle's not changing, my eyes aren't moving, my chest is already down, my knees are already down. It's just a much easier movement, and what I thought would be difficult would be the throwing aspect of it, but it really wasn't that much different, and the receiving aspect's a lot easier too. Now a little bit more about the right knee down. So when I'm teaching, I give a lot of lessons. When I'm teaching kids about the right knee down, I talk about a triple threat stance. So essentially what you want to do, call your sign, you kind of get this little triple threat stance. And from here, 2 things can really happen, right? Out of my peripherals, that guy's either going to steal or he's not. All right. If he steals, I hop into what's called a showcase stance. I'm here, and now I'm getting ready to throw. Right? If he doesn't steal or he doesn't break, you can either receive from here, get down in it, or you can go into what's called grasshopper or a kickstand stance. From here, he doesn't break, now I'm in this position. From here, I'm either receiving or that block becomes really easy. All right. So, like I said, I found blocking to be infinitely easier from this position, just from teamwork, bullpens, games. But it does take a lot of practice to get good at it. Because if you do it for 5 days and try and take that stance into the game, your timing is going to be off, your confidence is going to be off just because you haven't done it. It's something that just takes a whole lot of work. And like I said, I found I was a traditional stance catcher from the time I was 7 until probably 27, and then got into some really good catching coaches with the Tigers and learned to transition into that knee down stance. And y'all see, if you watch Major League games, college games, high school games, it's really taken over the position. Here's just a couple videos. So Real Muto on the right, that's a left knee down stance. And you see all he's worried about is getting that glove under the ball. That's one on the right, is more of the right knee down stance. He employs more of a non-kick stand on that first one, and then he's already down with his chest to block that second one. So a couple specifics there. Kind of an advanced thing to talk about. When you get to that right knee down stance, one of the things that hurts you is if you become too connected with the ground with your right knee. You try and have very little pressure on this right knee or shin guard to where I can slide left or right to block. You really don't want to become immobile and stationary to where I can't get to that horizontal block position. You want to stay light on that right knee. And the left knee down, I always try to think about connecting my chest to my knee, right? Receiving is really about being able to stop the force of the baseball, right? So I would try and connect this knee, or connect this chest to this knee here. Now I got all this freedom right here to be able to manipulate the ball with my catching hand. Whereas if I'm up here and disconnected, I just felt, I didn't feel as strong or as connected with my mid. So I always try to connect right here, get the weight of my body on the ball of this foot where I can push either way and manipulate that ball. What to do with the throwing hand is kind of a minor thing here, but it can be important. With nobody on, it doesn't really matter. I always tell kids, whatever you're comfortable with. Put it behind your cleat, wherever you want. For me personally, I was always comfortable. I call it the pelvic pocket. There's just a little crease right here. Kind of hanging out right there. From here, I'm receiving. And then with runners on base, same thing. The reason I liked it right there, I felt much closer for my exchanges and for my blocks. If I'm here lifting down and I got it behind my cleat, now I got to come all the way around this knee, or I got to come all the way around this knee to exchange. I just felt much more comfortable right here. Right? And I caught for 20 years, I maybe got hit in the hand 15 times on foul tips. It just doesn't happen very often. Last thing about stance specifics, ankle mobility is huge. If you're going to be able to sit in these positions for hours and hours a day. When I got to the Twins, they wanted me in right knee down stance exclusively. After like 3 days of spring training, my ankles were killing me. So I was in this position for hour after hour after hour. They showed me a lot of really good ankle mobility drills you can do in the weight room.
Grayson, if that is on, how would you determine which knee down you would do?
So that's a little bit more of an advanced thing. I would do it based off who's pitching and who's batting. So if I got a right-handed sinker baller on the mound, and I'm calling a sinker into a right-handed hitter, I would want to go left knee down there because I want my pre-pitch move to be inside where I can work outside in. Whereas if I'm right down on that pitch, now I feel blocked. Same thing, if I'm going to this side of the plate, I'd want to change it for that with nobody on. I would want to set my angle of my shoulders for the angle of that pitch coming in the same way.
So as an opposing coach, if I saw a lefty down, I can go in.
If he's thinking that smartly. He might just be doing it, I don't know. But that's another thing, so
Timing involved too.
yeah, there's some timing involved in it, but that's another thing is, in pro ball, they would tell us you're getting into patterns with your knee down setup. You're only going right knee down on pitches on that side of the plate, so we'd have to be conscious about, I got to mix it up here, maybe go traditional on some of them. It's really pitch to pitch and what you're comfortable with. So receiving, our goal, keep strikes, and win those borderline pitches for our pitchers, right? I talk about short, quick movements back to the middle. So what I mean by that, and when I get to the drills in a minute, I'll show you, but we used to put a little squishy ball on the middle spot of the plate, all right? And we would work on our inside lane, outside lane receiving, and we're trying to have short, quick movements in that direction. We're not necessarily moving it from off the plate to that middle pitch, but that shows the direction that I'm trying to move that ball. And it's going to change based off where the pitch is. It's not going to be the same on every one. If I got a pitch waist high on the outside corner, I'm not going to bring that ball up. I'm bringing that ball across. If I got a pitch on the bottom rail outside corner, I'm bringing that one back. If I got a pitch on the middle bottom rail, I'm not taking that one horizontally. I'm bringing it up. So just doing that in your training, it creates muscle memory of how I want to do it in the game. When I see a slider breaking down away, I've worked on it so much, I know I'm bringing that ball up diagonally. Glove speed is how we control the ball and trick the umpire. Like I said, our goal ultimately is to trick the umpire. All umpires kind of have blind spots. And if we're able to move the glove real fast and stop the glove real fast, they don't know where I caught that ball or where across the plate. And there's some drills you can do to really train that glove speed. One thing I say to young kids all the time, one move to the baseball. My biggest problem as a catcher, receiving-wise, I would have a tendency to make two moves. And what I mean by that, especially on breaking balls, I make my pre-pitch move, I go one move up, and then I'm catching the ball from above. What we really want to do, pre-pitch move, I'm hanging out, reading the ball, and I'm one move, always working from the ground up. And it's easier said than done, that's why it takes a ton of work. We always want to be working, like I said, from the outside in and from the ground up. Right? Outside in has a lot to do with that pre-pitch move. Okay? So if I got a right-handed hitter or a right-handed pitcher throwing a slider, breaking to the outside part of the plate, what I do with my pre-pitch move helps that. So I know I called that pitch, and I hope my pitcher's hitting the spot. Instead of making my pre-pitch move straight down here, the ball is breaking that way, that would be a case where I'm now attacking the ball from inside out. Instead, I call that pitch, I know it's coming. Then that's when I want to make my pre-pitch move outside. I call it setting the wall. Ball's outside my wall, catch it and throw it back. But if it's inside that wall, now I'm attacking it from the outside in with speed back to that middle pitch. So that's really all these drills are working on. Working from the ground up, working from the outside in. All starts with the pre-pitch move. Hopefully every catcher has one. Some of them don't. But it helps us kind of create a relaxing mechanism to where I'm not, anxious or stiff as a board. And the most important thing is it gets the mitt below the ball prior to delivery. The only time we're not really going to do that, call a high fastball. That's a little bit of a different pre-pitch move. Catching the ball, thumb down with an open mitt. A lot of kids I work with, they make their pre-pitch move and their mitt's in this position. Now they're not giving themselves a chance to catch the ball cleanly. Nice open mitt, make my pre-pitch move here, and I want to attack that ball with an open mitt, and I call it 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock. My thumb's at 6 o'clock, when I go to catch it, I just do that little quarter wrist turn to get the ball, or get my thumb at 3 o'clock. We want to try and present a consistent mitt to the umpire with a horizontal mitt. If our mitt ever gets too vertical either way, umpires don't like that. If we can just give them a nice, regardless of where the pitch is, give them a nice horizontal mitt from inning 1 to inning 9 or inning 7, it kind of blurs that line of demarcation for what's ball and what's a strike. And that's really what we want to do. We kind of want to blur that line for him. And then lastly, we want to focus on getting clean pops, whether we're in the bullpen, training, machine, whatever it may be. I've talked to umpires before, believe it or not, it tricks them. If they hear a good clean pop when you catch the ball, they're more inclined to call it a strike. Where if I'm kind of fumbling that ball or I don't catch it clean, they're less likely to call it a strike. The other thing, it allows me to control the ball a lot better, and it just, it looks better. So a couple drills real quickly. Just like I was talking about, ball on that middle tee, it gives me an idea of what direction I want to be moving that ball, right? Always put like a soft A-Tech ball or something on there in case the machine's off and hits the ball. But for the most part, I'm just trying to give my catchers a visual of where I want to be moving that ball and in what direction, right? Weighted wrist cuff. Right? The place I give lessons has these heavy, I don't know how much they weigh, but wrist straps you put on. Now I'm fighting against gravity, I'm fighting weight, and it's forcing me to work through it, working from the ground up. The other thing it does, it really helps with my glove speed. Just like if I want to work on my bat speed in the on-deck circle, put a donut on the bat. This is essentially putting a donut on your wrist. I do about 20-25 reps with the wrist cuff on, take that off, now my glove feels light as a feather, and I'm trying to rip through that ball. Bare hand rolls and short hops, this is one of the first things I would do in my pregame routine. Have a teammate or a coach just roll the ball on the ground, and I'm trying to get that sound right there where I'm working my thumb through the ball and up, and not above the ball and back down. Same thing with short hops, I'd have them step back, have them kind of hop the ball right here. If I float up, now I'm attacking that ball from below. I want to be catching that ball with speed and momentum going up. No catch pops, these are one of my favorite things to do on the machine. Same thing, you're going to keep your mitt wide open, pre-pitch move down, and you're literally not catching the ball here. You're trying to pop the ball forward and up in the air. It promotes a good open mitt, promotes catching that ball in a good pocket. And the most important thing it does is it forces you to be from the ground up. If a guy does this and he pops it and goes straight down, that means their glove's in this position instead of firing from below. And then you try and alternate between those no catches, and then you mimic it with a catch. And then you just go one after the other, and you try and mimic those and kind of make it the same. Last one, we call it the 3 bears drill. We did this a lot with the Twins. Just like the porridge is too hot, porridge is too cold. It's perfect. We would set the breaking ball machine on like 95-mile-per-hour sliders, and we would try and make the same move. Then they put it on like a 40-mile-per-hour curveball. Wait, same move, and then we meet somewhere in the middle, more of a game speed, to where we're still trying to make the same move. We don't want to let the pitch necessarily dictate what our moves are. I don't know if this will play. Will it play? This was just a video. So one thing about me, I'm a very visual learner. And from the time I was a little kid, I tried to watch what the big leaguers do and do what they do. That's just how I operate. I wanted to try and do what the best players in the world do. This is a video. You got YouTube, you can go on there, look at the top framers, top blockers, top throwers, all the time. We'll play on there. There we go. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but these are some of the best receivers in the big leagues. Just want you to notice different setups, left knee down, right knee down, traditional. Always moving back to that middle location with speed. This is Austin Hedges. I think he's like a career 140 hitter. He's played 12 years in the big league simply because he can catch and throw. He's incredible at it. This is more of he doesn't kick out right there. Always moving back to the middle location. One thing I would tell your catchers, same thing, watch as much video as you can and soak up as much information as you can. That's the best way to learn. Video yourself so you can correct yourself or criticize yourself. We'll watch one more guy. I think the next guy is Jonah Heim, who's one of my favorites. He's a little more quiet than Hedges is. He's a bigger guy with a bigger target. Everything working back towards the middle. Here's Heim. He's more of a left knee guy down all the time. Same concept, so always moving the ball back towards the middle. You can cut it there. Move on. Oh, I got it. Yeah. Well, there. There we go. So a couple of receiving tools. Same thing, part of my pregame routine, weighted balls. A lot of pitchers use them for throwing. I'd have a coach or a player flipping the ball. Just do the same thing, trying to fight gravity, fight the weight of that ball, taking me to the ground. That little flinch is what gets us in trouble as catchers. As you get older and umpires get better, when they see that flinch, it's a ball. So we're trying to fight through that weighted ball up into the zone. Already talked about the weighted wrist strap. Slant board's a really cool device. I've seen them in for hitters before. It's just a 45-degree angle board. You set it up to where the ramp is working down towards the catcher, and the catcher is literally riding that ramp up to promote that ground up feeling. All-Star has some great training mitts that you can use. They have one called a keyhole with spin balls where you set the spin machine low. It's pretty common theme, but we're always working from the ground up, outside in. But that one, it's almost like a fishing net on the web where you're not really squeezing the net, you're just trying to get that good clean pocket. Anvil weighted net, very similar to the wrist strap and the weighted balls, but fighting weight and fighting gravity. Equalizer webless training mitt, doesn't have a web, working on catching the ball in that clean pocket. Best advice I can give to young catchers, machine. Catch tens of thousands of balls off that machine. You can experiment with traditional left knee down, right knee down. Just like, when I'm hitting in the cage, I can't really go for 4 or 4 for 4. I can experiment with different things. Same with catching. I want to get comfortable in all those different setups, so when I get into a game, I don't feel uncomfortable. And developing a consistent, repeatable, pre-game routine that you can do day in, day out, and you're going into the game prepared. Getting into the second step, so that again, 95% of what we did in college and pro ball was receiving work. All right, blocking was maybe 4%, throwing was maybe 1%. I know throwing is the most fun. As a catcher, it's the most fun thing you do is throw somebody out. At the end of the day, it's probably the least important, right? If I got a game with 150 pitches in high school, on a very busy day, they might steal, 6, 7 times? I got a really busy day on blocking balls in the dirt, 12, 15 balls in the dirt, that leaves me 120 pitches I'm receiving. And that's where we can really have our value, making sure we're winning pitches for our pitcher. When we talk about blocking, I always talk about being aggressive with the mitt and letting the body follow. Right? When I was real young, they taught you to kind of replace your feet with your knees, kind of kick back. I always felt when I did that, I'm losing ground and the ball is now blocking me. I want to be aggressive with the mitt and smother the ball and be the aggressor when I'm blocking. We want to be nice and smooth and quiet and soft. We want to talk about being a pillow instead of being a brick wall. Learning how to breathe. When you're in the cage working on your blocking, you have a visible or an audible exhale. You can feel yourself and hear yourself breathe when the ball's about to hit you. Anchor in the mitt, right? When that mitt goes down, when we get in trouble is when we try and bring it up and block it with our mitt. 1, I'm leaving that hole exposed, and 2, 99 times out of 100, you're probably going to block it all right. That one time when there's a runner on third, it hits my palm and goes over my shoulder and we lose the game, I got a much better chance if I just let the ball hit me in the chest. The timing of our shoulder tilt is really going to dictate the angle of the ball, right? It's geometry. Ball's coming in at this angle, my chest is upright, it's coming in at this angle and hits here. The reciprocal angle there is it's coming off this way. Whereas if I time up my shoulder tilt as I watch that ball, now that same ball's hitting and coming straight down. So working on that timing of when I want to do that shoulder tilt. Once we block the ball, we're not done, right? One of the worst things we can do is sit there and admire our work when we block the ball. If I just sit there and I don't get up, that guy's still taking the base. And ultimately our goal when we're blocking the ball is not allow any free 90s. I call it a blocking pop. So I'll get to it in a little bit. We had a great catching coach in Detroit, Josh Paul. He was a little eccentric with his training, but we did it so much he had it ingrained in us. When the ball hits me in the chest, I'm on my feet as quickly as possible. All right? We want to create that trigger feeling. Ball hits my chest, I'm up. Ball hits my chest, I'm up. To not even give the runner a chance to think about taking a free base. Same thing, practice blocking and all the setups. You got to find out in practice what you're comfortable with in a game. If I got a man on third base in a game, in a nut cutting situation, I don't want to be in a setup that I'm not comfortable with to make sure my team has a chance. Very simple, get comfortable blocking with the chest, not relying on the mitt. Same thing. I don't want to get too comfortable doing this to where I'm doing that too much of the game. Bottom line, at the end of the day, be an athlete and keep the ball in front of you. Blocking is simply a mentality. If I tell myself I'm not going to let the ball get by me ever, most of the time you're going to be successful in that. But when I was younger, I used to be more of a believer in your form's got to be perfect, all this stuff. Same thing with throwing, your form's got to be perfect. I think be an athlete and react and make a play. Back to Josh Paul with Detroit. Every morning, 6:45 spring training, we did this 5-step progression. We did it with our eyes closed. We did it with our eyes open. We called them little tennis balls. They're little yellow ATEC balls. We'd set the machine up at about 25 feet at about 90 miles an hour. The we'd sit here and we're just waiting to hear it out of the machine, and we're reacting from there. So the first one, you'd be down on 2 knees. All we're doing is just getting used to getting hit in the chest. Same thing, if you do it with your eyes closed, you're just waiting to hear the ball out of the machine, and I'm trusting myself in blocking it. And what we discovered after doing this for about a week, the ball looked like it was in slow motion, even though it was 90 miles an hour from 20 feet, the ball looked like it was in slow motion. We realized how much time we actually had. When we're blocking, sometimes we panic and think we don't have time. You got more time than you think. Second one's called an anchor drill. This is one where you take the mitt, anchor it on the ground, other hand behind it, and you're just waiting to hear the ball, and all we're doing from here is collapsing our knees behind or around the ball. Same thing, getting used to getting hit in the chest. And we don't want the goal up to lose anchor. We want to keep the anchor to the ground. Third step of the progression is just a regular block. Reading the ball, reacting, blocking. We're not recovering at this point. Fourth one is when we start incorporating that trigger. Right, I'm down on 2 knees, listening for the ball, I block, and I'm trying to minimize the time from when it hits my chest, hair on my chest, hopping on my feet as fast as I can. I'm learning, if I have the hip mobility to do that, if you have a catcher that can't do that, put your hands on the ground and get up. But all we're trying to do is minimize that time as much as we can to not even give that guy at first or second a chance to think about taking a free base. The last thing is kind of the full Monty. I'm in whatever stance I employ, knee down traditional, blocking, popping, recover, and get my footwork set to whatever base. Let's say do the hard work early to second and third. All that means if I block the ball and it's trickling away from me out front, instead of attacking that ball head on, we want to do the hard work early, get inside to where my hips and my shoulders are already aligned to the base I'm throwing to. All right, if we attack that ball head on, now I'm in a tough position to try and throw that guy out. Handcuff drill is one of my favorite drills blocking. All right, take your hands, tie them behind your back, and I'm teaching guys to block with just their chest. Their glove can't be involved, their arm can't be involved, and you'd be surprised how much better they get at using their chest and trusting that they can block with their chest. And it removes any desire to want to pick the ball with your mitt. The 9-ball drill, that's more of a warm-up agility drill. It's a pretty good one. You just put 3x3 square balls on the ground. All you're doing, these are just dry blocks. But you're going to be in whatever stance you want. The first row is going to be balls down the middle. Block, pop, shuffle over, block, shuffle over, block, shuffle over. You get up to the second row, you just set up on the right-hand side. Now you're blocking to your left. 3 times, get up to the third row, set up on the left, now you're blocking to your right. Just more of an agility drill, gets the body warm, and we're still working on our blocking form. No doubt, my favorite and hardest drill when it comes to blocking is just a read and react. All right, you get a coach, you get a teammate, set up sliders, and as a coach or a teammate, you're moving the machine up and down, and they're having to read whether it's a pitch I'm going to receive or a pitch I'm going to block. All right, it's probably the most game-like and the most difficult drill we do, because a lot of times what guys will do is they'll read it too late, and they'll pick the blocks, and they'll go to block the balls in the air. It's just you're really picking up the height that the ball starts at to be able to know whether I'm going to receive or block. Another short video. Same thing, just pay attention to the different stances. Almost all these are going to be knee down blocks. And this is a little different. These are the best players in the world. They're not really going to recover because they block the ball so close to them that they know the guy's not taking off. If they do, they're going to throw it out by a mile. This is Murphy. He goes left knee down, keeps it close, but almost every one of these are going to be knee down. It makes the blocking so much easier. Kirk, he's a right knee down guy. He's about 5'6" too. It makes it a lot easier for him. Fortes is more of a hybrid. He starts in traditional, and as the pitch is coming, he goes to that right knee down. Rio Muto and Langoliers are they're the only 2 I can think of in the big leagues that go left knee down with runners on. They're incredible athletes, both of them. Reno's the right knee, there's the kickstand. He's blocked. Stop it. Third and last, we got throwing. All right, we've done receiving, we've done blocking, throwing. Like I said, the funnest, but it's probably the least important. All right. Throwing runners out or my pop time is a math equation. Okay. Whatever your arm strength is today on January 26th, that arm strength's probably not changing today. That's one of the equations of the pop time. The other one is something you can work on, your exchange time. Okay, if you got a guy that's a 0.9 exchange time is the time from the time it hits my mitt to the time it leaves my hand. All right, if I can take that same 0.9 and get him down to a 0.75, that shaves 0.15 off his pop time. Because his arm strength's not going to get any better than that. And all the exchange drills and the footwork drills are kind of what reduce that exchange time. And really, we got two portions to our throwing. We got our exchange, we got our footwork. Back to Josh Paul, I worked with him the longest in my career, but he was the first one that taught me about exchange to where I don't really have to manufacture anything with my shoulders, my hips, anything. When we talked about our exchange, he said, all I want you to think about is getting the ball from your mitt to your hand as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And I was kind of confused when he said that. And then he said, because your footwork is going to get you where you need to go anyways. There's no need to manufacture anything. All I want you to do is think about getting there. When I do my footwork, I'm going to go ahead and get to that position anyways. So all of our drills would be trying to minimize the time from it being in my glove to getting in my throwing hand. Footwork, same thing. When I was younger, I thought you had to have perfect footwork every single time, right? I thought you'd have a 6-inch jab step, land in the same spot. At the end of the day, we want to be an athlete, get our right foot in the ground, get our left foot in the ground, get that ball in the air with a good, accurate throw, right? Ideally, on a perfect pitch to throw on, I do want to gain a little bit of ground with my right foot jab step, a little 6-inch jab step. But a lot of that is going to be dictated by who's hitting. If I got a right-handed hitter up, it is a little bit more important for me to be direct with my footwork. If I got a left-handed hitter up, I got all this space over here. It doesn't really matter as long as I'm getting my weight going towards where I want to throw the ball. Like I said, the saying I say to all the kids I work with, right foot down, left foot down, get that ball in the air with a strong, accurate throw. All right? Be an athlete. So the 83% rule, they showed us just like they have the 9-box quadrant hitting, they showed us 9 boxes at second base. All right? You got knees, second base side, knees on the bag, knees shortstop side, waist, second base, bag, shortstop, head and above, second base, on the bag, shortstop. They said, guess how many successful caught stealings this past year were in the second base side, knees and below. It was 83% of successful caught stealings. So 17% in all the other 9 or 8 quadrants were caught stealings. So that shows us this is where we want to miss. If we miss, we want to miss second base side with a low throw. And they're teaching now. They're teaching infielders to come up in front of the base and up on the second base side so you can tag that guy before he even gets to second base. All right, so a throw on the bag is not a bad throw. Now, I mean, if you're going to miss, have your guys miss second base side, below, put some buckets out there, give them some targets to work on it. Lastly, with throwing, we want to let the ball travel, and then that's when we want to explode out, right? One of the worst things you can do is I'm here and I start standing up before the ball gets to me. We want to be quiet, let the ball travel, and then go. And a good little tip that I learned playing, we want to think about dipping this left knee to start initiating the hip swivel. So I'm here, whatever stance I'm in, just that little dip right there is going to start getting my hips behind me, but I'm still in a good, strong position where I can let the ball travel and go from there. So some throwing drills, clap progression. You can do this with a partner in your catch play with another catcher. All you're doing on this one is you're getting the 10 toes, no mitt, just giving a good firm toss. All we're doing on the first one, we're not moving our hips or shoulders. We're just, like I said, efficiently getting that ball from my throwing hand, or from my catching hand to my throwing hand. Step 2, all you do is take a step back, and now we're incorporating just a little jab step. Same thing, right there. And the last one, taking one step further back, and we're doing the whole thing. Everything. Making sure we're in line, making sure we're not falling onto our front foot. Another one you can do for the exchange is that pop type thing to the throwing side. I got this one from Adley Rutschman, saw him doing this. Down on 2 knees on the machine, put my throwing hand behind my back. All I'm working on is popping that ball over to my throwing side this way. Because we don't want the ball going this way, because that promotes a longer throwing motion. And it also promotes kind of that short exchange to the ear. Best way to get better at throwing is throw. Throw to the bag, set some targets out there, work with your infielders, throw. It's the only way to get better at it within reason to where you're still taking care of your arm. Range finders, we always like to do some range finders before we do full throws. That's simply where I put the ball in my mitt. I'm just finding my release point, finding my arm action and my arm speed, and getting used to that good accurate throw. Call it spectrum training. It's kind of like the 3 bears thing. Sometimes we want to go uncomfortably fast to learn what too fast is. We want to go uncomfortably slow and methodical to learn what too slow is, and then find that sweet spot of where I'm at my best. Let's do a couple of these. Same thing, right knee down. There's the showcase stance. Low, second base or side. Not all of these are going to be there, but you'll see for the most part they're going to be second base side, knees and below. Right knee down. There it is. Right knee down. The traditional stance one there, but same thing. Second base side, see how the infielder comes up and to the second base side, he's able to tag before he gets to the base. That's good, Ed. So just to wrap up a little bit, just like anything in baseball, like I said, it's not a science, it's an art. It's not cookie cutter. Every player is going to have physical limitations. All right, I'm 6'6", 250. I'm going to catch a whole lot different than a guy that's 5'8", 150. Right, we're going to do things differently. Our body's not going to allow us to do certain things. Find out what your guys are good at doing, accentuate those, and then in training and in practice, let them get comfortable in all three. See if they're able to do it. Challenge them to see if they're able to get comfortable in all three of those setups. Like your question, Coach Hugs, a lot of times the game situation is going to dictate what we want to employ. The angles of where the pitch is coming in. If I got a right-handed pitcher that sets up on the right-hand side of the mound and throws sliders, big sweeping sliders, I'm going to set the angles of my shoulders to where instead of that ball breaking away from me, all I got to do is bring my right foot forward. Now my angle of my shoulders, that ball's coming more into the center of my body. If I got a fast guy on first versus a slow guy, I might go in a different setup. If I got a dumpy first baseman on first base, I'm not worried about him running. I might go left knee down to focus on receiving, right? If I got a runner on third in a big game or a big situation, I'm going to go with the stance that I'm most comfortable blocking in. Train hard but smart, right? When we did blocking drills, rarely would we ever block with baseballs. We use the little A-Tech balls. I can still work on my form. I can still work everything I want to, but I'm not going to be afraid of taking one off the forearm or off the thigh and getting smoked. So train hard but train smart. The bullpen is the most important part for a catcher. All right, just like the previous speaker said, nobody has the angle or the view that the catcher has of that ball coming in. You learn your pitchers, you learn what they like, what they don't like. You have the interactions with them, and it's the most game-like. Right, that's what we're going to see in the game. Learning the time. Some guys pick up a little higher, some guys pick up lower. That'll help with the timing of my pre-pitch move, my setup, all that. Lastly, this probably doesn't apply to high school as much. Take care of your catches. Right, in spring training, we catch 12, 14 bullpens. We go get 4 swings on a backfield with some crappy coach, and then we were done for the day. Try and take care of your catchers, keep them happy. In my opinion, they're the most important players on the field. It's a very tough position mentally, physically. It's a lot of responsibility on them. So I just want to thank y'all again for letting me speak a little bit. Like I said, I've never coached before. Mr. Hill asked me to come talk about catching. All I knew how to do was talk about it from the eyes of the player. If y'all ever need anything or want to ask a question, feel free. I try and stay involved with youth baseball as much as I can, high school, college. I live in Columbia, so if I can ever do anything for any of y'all, just let me know. But that's my spiel on catching.
Any questions for Mark at all about catching real quick? It'll take a couple of minutes if we got some time. But exchanging for the low ball. Yeah, you're exchanging here. Football here, ball here, response.
Catch it, get it to the midline of the body. That's more of
the
the
midline?
Yeah, get it to the midline. That's more of just the athlete aspect of it.
Low pitch.
Yeah, catch it, get it to the midline, great transfer. So.
I feel like the business high school sometimes more drastic than on the higher level, left or right. Do you
They
find
are.
it harder to stop those out of one you guys fans, or?
I think so, but I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes we make the plate to be a lot bigger than it really is. The plate's only about that big. The lines are about here. If my pitcher's missing halfway in the batter's box, I'm just trying to put a glove on and stop it anyway. But anything within those, the batter box lines, I should be able to slide and stop that ball. And at the end of the day, sometimes you're going to get those big misses, and we practice those where it's game on the line. I'm just diving trying to put a glove on it. You're not going to be able to get those balls from a traditional stance anyways. So, but yes, the misses are significantly bigger. Funny stat, can anybody tell me the average miss, target miss in the big leagues? How big do you think the average miss is? They told us this stat as well. Any guesses?
6 inches. 80%.
12 inches. And that's the best pitchers in the world. So I'm guessing high schoolers' average miss is probably about 2.5 feet. So, as catchers, we hope our pitcher hits a spot, but we always got to be ready to, if I'm set up on the outside corner for a slider, my pitcher misses top shelf inside, I still want to be able to win that for a strike. I'm hoping he hits a spot, but also realizing most of the time they're not going to hit their spot, hardly ever, right? So I thought that was an interesting nugget. Anything else?
Why do you think, I think you said Detroit writing down?
The Twins were more writing you down. So the Twins were more writing you down. They forced every catcher to pretty much do that. I would honestly say from 2014 when I got drafted to 2019, there weren't many knee-down catchers in general. The first guy I kind of remember that revolutionized was a guy named Tyler Flowers for the Braves. He was kind of the first one that did it exclusively, and then it only grew from there. I mean, I didn't start doing it really until like 2020. My whole life I was a 2 feet traditional stance catcher, and then it's honestly taken off from there. The Twins, that was just kind of an organizational thing that they had the data to back it up, that they wanted guys down on a knee at all times. They were more, the way they explained it to me is we're fine with guys stealing on us. We want to win more strikes throughout the course of 9 innings. And, you're still going to throw some guys out from that position. But they were more concerned about winning strikes and blocking than they were about the throwing aspect of it.
How much did it save your legs going one knee?
That's another piece of it. I had 4 knee surgeries. As I got older in my career, being able to just sit back there for 3 hours on a knee helped a lot. Instead of up and down, up and down, up and down. The pressure of blocking, that's a lot of pressure on your knees banging onto the ground for blocking. I think there's way more pros than cons when it comes to it, if you can do it.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
Thank you all.
Wow.